If you watch this channel, you know I love hyping undervalued cities, but cities are big, diverse places, and I've wanted to take a more granular approach. So today I bring you the 10 most affordable zip codes in the US that still offer good urbanism, and it's coming up next. This is CityNerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer suggested topics always welcome, even when the viewer is an executive at an apartment hunting website startup. Now, I'm not going to name names, but someone at the website Dwellsy gave me a very rich data set to work with no strings attached, except for they probably know I'm a stand-up guy, and I'm gonna acknowledge them in the video and put a link down the description. The only other requirement was that I not make fun of them for being a tech startup that has a Y at the end of their name. Anyway, what they have, and this is kind of what they claim is their differentiator, is darn close to every rental unit listing that's available in the US with all kinds of location, size, and amenity information. And they were kind enough to just give me a huge data set that has all the units in the US that were on the market in the most recent month. Like, this is just pivot table heaven for me. So today's video looks at renting, not owning, mostly because that's the data I've got, but also it's kind of where I'm at right now. I've been renting for a while now, and if you want to know why and how I think about the renting versus owning decision, my video on housing affordability has some of that discussion in it. So what I'm doing with this today is calculating the median rent per square foot for every zip code in the United States for the most recent month. Using the median instead of the mean helps me avoid the undue influence of outliers, and it also helps me come up with kind of a representative property for a zip code. And then I only wanted zip codes that have at least 50 apartment listings in them. I figure this does a couple things for me. It gives me a little more statistical confidence in the results, but also I kind of assume any zip code that's got at least 50 available apartments in it is probably a fairly urban zip code. And you know, for this video, I was thinking about just giving you the 10 cheapest zip codes, but in exploring the data, I realized that, no surprise, the vast majority of inexpensive zip codes are super car-oriented places that I cannot in good conscience suggest that you move to. So as a threshold criterion, I required that all the zip codes that made this video have a walk score rating of 70 or above, which is the bottom end of walk score's very walkable category. And I did do a bit of quality control here because WalkScore tried to tell me Nederland, Texas is a 70. And I mean, yeah, it is basically indistinguishable from a Dutch city, but I vetoed it. It's actually the only zip code I vetoed. The rest of them are just what the data say they are. So just to summarize, this is a list of the 10 most inexpensive zip codes in the US that have a walk score rating of 70 or higher. And I'm pretty happy with the list. There's a mix of cities I've definitely talked about before, repeatedly, and cities that have just never appeared on this channel before. And I think that's a sufficient preamble, so let's just get into it. Number 10 is zip code 40508 in Lexington, Kentucky. This is basically central Lexington, including historic South Hill, and most of the University of Kentucky. So one thing I realized as I was going through this is that even zip codes aren't really as granular as I'd like to get. So for each of these, I'm going to show you a specific property that was available in the most recent data that's right around the median price per square foot, so you can get a feel for the urban environment and what you're getting for your money. This will be kind of like apartment hunting with a middle-aged white dude who's a little too into urbanism. So this is 153 North Limestone. It looks like you'll be living above some law offices and have no shortage of food and beverage options right outside your door. Number 9 is zip code 55130 in St. Paul, Minnesota, just northeast of downtown. Payne Avenue, the main commercial street through this zip code, is really interesting and diverse. You can see the imprint of a lot of the immigrant communities in this part of the city. For a property, let's check out 496 North Street, pretty close into downtown. It's like a Victorian multifamily. Obviously not new construction, but it's pretty centrally located for this price. Number 8 is zip code 15203 in Pittsburgh. You guys already know how I feel about Pittsburgh, and this zip code is Southside Flats, which I'm sure I've featured in at least one other video. And this is just ridiculous value for what you're paying, in my opinion. And I actually had trouble even choosing just one property to show you just because there were so many interesting ones. But I'm gonna go with 1911 Sydney Street, right in the heart of the district. I guess you would just live above the Bob Shearer locksmith shop. Just extremely cool. I mean, look at this street. There's honestly nothing about it that I don't love. Number 7 is zip code 73106 in Oklahoma City. Not a city I usually have a lot of nice things to say about since they stole my NBA team. 73106 encompasses a few different neighborhoods, but let's drop in on Northwest 16th Street because it's probably a bit different from what you might think of when you think of OKC. For a rental property, we can be just off 16th on Indiana Avenue in one of these beauties, and it's gonna be very walkable to just all kinds of stuff. Number 6 is zip code 40203 in Louisville, just south and west of downtown. Okay, so I cheated a bit on this one. WalkScore says this is only a 69, which is nice, but apparently not very walkable. So I just went ahead and made an executive decision to round it up to 70 and put it on this list anyway. I mean, these are neighborhoods with just fantastic urban fabric, in my opinion, and very cool old building stock. But for listings, I'm going with 800 South 4th. Recently renovated, I think, and there were tons of units available in this building, right around the median rent for the zip code. Really underrated city, in my opinion, so this is just a lot of value. Number 5 is Memphis, zip code 38104, which is kind of midtown, I think. So close into downtown, and the neighborhood kind of has everything. Let's zoom in on a property and I'll show you what I mean. 1670 Monroe, not the most aesthetically pleasing structure, but I do like a street like this. And then you're right between Union Avenue, a block south, which is a strode, but you will be able to walk to Kroger's and honestly, a lot of other useful stuff. And Madison Avenue, a block north, which is more pleasant and more walkable. Again, not a city that typically shows up on my top 10 lists, and that's why it's so nice to be able to look at smaller geographies. Well, and then you have entire states that have never made an appearance on this channel. So for number 4, let's go to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and zip code 82001, which really encompasses downtown and the northern part of the city. On the minus side, Cheyenne is a bit remote. It's not like you're gonna get on a train and be in another major city in, say, an hour or even maybe a day. On the other hand, well, I don't want to make any assumptions about the political leanings of people who watch this channel, but if we moved all 166,000 or whatever of my subscribers to Wyoming, we could probably flip a couple Senate seats. Rental property search, let's go with 608 East 17th Street. Low-rise multifamily building, great looking street, close into downtown. Yeah, it's Wyoming, but I do think you could probably live a pretty good life here for what you're paying. Number 3 is zip code 53212 in Milwaukee. This is like River West and Brewers Hill, north of downtown. Milwaukee's another one of these cities that's just shockingly affordable for what you get, and this is a great location. Old streetcar suburb, urban fabric with a cool neighborhood main street. What more do you want? For housing, let's check out 2636 North Weil Street. I'm not even sure exactly which house we're talking about here, but it's a good looking street and this is a pretty fantastic location for what you're paying. Okay, I've got a couple more great zip codes coming your way, and I've got kind of like a honorable and a dishonorable. But first, usual reminder to like, subscribe, activate notifications, whatever. Follow on the apps if you're looking for more of my brilliant, insightful commentary. And Patreon is a great way to support what I'm doing directly and engage in more conversation. I don't really have a dishonorable mention. I'll probably make a whole other video about zip codes that are expensive and mediocre. But I did want to see what the most expensive zip code in the data was. And I thought I might be surprised, but I really wasn't. It's 10001, which is kind of a deeply satisfying number in itself for a variety of reasons. Is it really what I would call dishonorable? I don't know. I sort of put it in the category of you get what you pay for, sort of. It is a 99 walk score rating and probably about the best transit you can get in the US. Honorable mention, I wanted to show you the least expensive zip code in the US that had over 50 listings, regardless of urbanist quality or lack thereof. And it's 45701 in Athens, Ohio. What's actually amazing here is if I just put the zip code in, I get a walk score rating of 69. So I almost could have put Athens, Ohio, #1 on this list, but it's a city of like 24,000, and I didn't want to put any places on this list that I didn't feel like I could maybe live myself. It is a college town though, so if you can deal with a smaller city, just something to consider. Okay, let's go to number 2, which is zip code 63118 in one of my perpetually underrated cities, St. Louis. Zip codes don't exactly map to neighborhoods one-to-one, but this is gonna be Benton Park, bordering on Tower Grove Park, which is, in my opinion, lovely. And the zip code also has Cherokee Street right in the heart of it, which is kind of my textbook definition of a great urban main street. Cool and interesting and diverse. The property I'm going with is 3455 Crittenden Street, right by Tower Grove Park. I mean, to me, this is just ridiculous. Like, I don't even understand how we live in a world where this is practically $1 a square foot. And I've got a bonus St. Louis zip code, 63104, which includes Soulard, which is also phenomenal. 63104 would have made today's list on its own, displacing the Lexington zip code at number 10, but I talk about St. Louis too much already. You want to sample absurdly affordable rental unit close into Soulard? Well, here you go. What could possibly be better than St. Louis, Missouri, you ask? Well, let's head 100 miles west on I-70 for my #1 affordable zip code, 65201 in Columbia, Missouri. It's a big zip code that does include downtown, and most of the rental units are closer in. Some of you may be thinking, Columbia, Missouri, man, you're really stretching it. Well, when I search the zip code, I do get the highest walk score rating of any zip code I had on this list. And realize that Columbia is the home of the University of Missouri. So you get the mostly good stuff that comes with being in a college town. It's gonna be reasonably progressive, and it is a metro area of over 200,000, so it's not that small. But it is small enough, apparently, that you can get a whole house pretty close into downtown, which is something I don't think you can get in zip code 10001. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks for joining today. Thanks as always to the patrons, and thanks again to Dwellsy. They didn't pay me anything, which is probably just stupid on my part, but they were very generous with CSV files. There's really just so much interesting stuff in what they gave me, so get down in the comments and make some suggestions if there are different ways you want to see me slice and dice the data. Otherwise, keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll be back with a new installment next week, and I'll see you then.